There's a town in England where house prices dropped 15% last year, whilst London jumped another 8%. Not because of scandal or disaster, but because nobody wants to move there anymore. The removal vans arrive empty and leave full, carrying families who finally had enough. This isn't about one struggling village or a single factory closure. It's about entire communities watching their young people leave and never return. Their high streets hollowing out shop by shop, and their population graphs trending steadily downward year after year. We're not talking about picturesque Cotswold villages or trendy northern quarters. We're examining 8 English towns that the modern economy has quietly left behind. Places where for sale signs linger for months, where optimistic regeneration plans gather dust in council offices, and where locals increasingly wonder if anyone in Westminster even remembers they exist. These towns aren't dying dramatically, they're fading gradually as people vote with their feet by choosing opportunities elsewhere. Today, we're uncovering the uncomfortable truth behind why these 8 towns can't convince people to stay or attract new residents despite cheap housing and proud histories. The reasons might surprise you. They'll definitely make you think differently about England's uneven recovery from decades of industrial decline. Subscribe to this channel and activate the notification bell, not just for me, but for you too. Do you want to move to a city with absurd crime or a deadly virus? Here you'll know what's going on in the UK, and you'll be able to avoid a lot of things and discover new things too. Let's analyze what's really happening. Number 8. Grimsby. Grimsby once proudly declared itself the fishing capital of the world, processing more cod than anywhere on earth and employing tens of thousands in its bustling docks where the smell of fresh fish mingled with salt air and diesel fumes from trawlers. That world vanished almost overnight when international fishing quotas decimated the industry in the 1970s and 80s, ripping out not just jobs but the town's entire identity and economic foundation. Whilst politicians now excitedly discuss renewable energy opportunities with offshore wind farms potentially bringing green jobs, locals remain deeply skeptical after decades of broken promises about regeneration that never quite materialized into actual prosperity for ordinary families. The town sits geographically isolated at the terminus of the M180 motorway, making commuting to larger employment hubs like Sheffield or Leeds practically impossible for daily work. Whilst the high street has suffered catastrophic decline, with major retailers abandoning the town centre entirely, leaving behind charity shops and boarded windows that tell their own depressing story. Young people growing up here hear nostalgic tales of prosperous fishing days but see no comparable opportunities in their own future, leading to a massive brain drain as anyone with qualifications or ambition heads to cities offering actual career progression rather than warehouse jobs paying minimum wage with zero prospects for advancement or skills development. Number 7. Blackpool. Blackpool remains Britain's most iconic seaside resort, its famous tower dominating the skyline, whilst millions of tourists annually flood the Golden Mile for illuminations, pleasure beach thrills, and raucous stag weekends that keep the tills ringing through summer months. However, venture just 2 streets back from the glittering seafront facade and you'll discover a starkly different reality that most day trippers never witness, with some of the most statistically deprived neighbourhoods in the entire country struggling with issues that regeneration funding hasn't managed to solve despite decades of well-meaning attempts. The town battles chronic problems with substandard housing stock, much of it former guest houses hastily converted into poorly maintained houses of multiple occupation that trap vulnerable families in genuinely grim conditions, whilst the economy remains dangerously over-reliant on low-wage seasonal hospitality work that disappears completely come October, leaving thousands scrambling for sparse winter employment. Health inequalities here are amongst England's worst, with life expectancy notably lower than the national average, whilst educational outcomes lag behind comparable towns, creating a generational cycle that's incredibly difficult to break free from, even with determination and effort. Despite the council's genuine attempts at diversification and regeneration, the fundamental perception of Blackpool as somewhere you visit briefly for a laugh, rather than somewhere you'd seriously consider building a stable, prosperous life, remains deeply entrenched nationwide. Number 6. Jaywick. Jaywick regularly appears at the very bottom of government deprivation indices, a statistical position that reflects harsh realities on the ground rather than mere number crunching by distant civil servants in Whitehall offices. The town's unique problems stem directly from its unusual origins as a 1930s holiday camp development where small wooden chalets were constructed for temporary summer occupation, never intended for permanent year-round habitation by families who'd need proper insulation, modern amenities, and structural integrity to withstand harsh coastal winters. Many current residents inhabit these same converted structures that were fundamentally inadequate from the start, facing damp, cold, and deterioration, while simultaneously dealing with serious flood risks from the town's vulnerable coastal position that sees seawater regularly threatening homes during storm surges. Infrastructure remains severely lacking, with some roads still unpaved and unadopted by the council, limited bus services isolating residents without cars, and a notable absence of local employment opportunities beyond sporadic seasonal work that disappears entirely for 8 months annually. Property prices here rank amongst England's absolute cheapest, with some houses selling for under £20,000, but these rock-bottom valuations reflect fundamental lack of investment, opportunity, and basic living standards, rather than representing any kind of genuine bargain for potential buyers. The cycle of poverty here feels almost impossible to break without massive external intervention that shows no signs of arriving. Number 5. Hartlepool. Hartlepool's economic identity was forged entirely in heavy industry, with shipbuilding and steel production employing generations of families in well-paid skilled work that provided genuine social mobility and community pride throughout the 20th century. When those industries collapsed with brutal finality during the 1980s deindustrialization wave, the town lost not just employment, but its entire economic purpose, leaving behind contaminated brownfield sites, generational unemployment, and communities struggling to redefine themselves in a service economy that offered primarily low-wage alternatives to previously secure manufacturing careers. Whilst the town possesses genuine historical charm with its revitalized maritime heritage quarter and the famous story of residents once hanging a monkey they mistook for a French spy during Napoleonic times, these tourist attractions haven't translated into sustained economic recovery or population growth that might reverse the long decline. The town suffers from geographical isolation on the Durham coast without convenient motorway access, making commuting to larger regional employment centres like Newcastle or Middlesbrough difficult enough that most people simply choose to live closer to where actual jobs exist rather than enduring lengthy, complicated journeys. Young people particularly struggle to envision futures here beyond limited retail or care work opportunities, leading to the familiar pattern of school leavers and university graduates departing for cities and never returning, slowly draining the town of energy, ambition, and the demographic diversity that thriving communities require. Number 4. Rhyl. Technically Welsh rather than English, but sharing identical coastal resort struggles that make it relevant to this discussion, Rhyl once thrived as a bucket and spade destination for working-class families from Liverpool and Manchester escaping industrial grime for seaside holidays featuring donkey rides, candy floss, and optimistic sunshine that didn't always materialize. The rise of cheap package holidays to guaranteed Spanish sunshine absolutely devastated traditional British coastal resorts like Rhyl, which simply couldn't compete with Benidorm's reliable weather and modern facilities, leading to decades of managed decline as guest houses closed, attractions deteriorated, and the town's purpose evaporated. Attempts at regeneration have produced mixed results at best, with a new water park and promenade improvements failing to reverse the fundamental economic decline or attract the kind of sustained investment that might diversify the economy beyond low-wage seasonal tourism. The town battles significant antisocial behaviour problems and has developed an unfortunate reputation for poverty and deprivation that actively discourages potential new residents from considering relocation here, regardless of the cheap housing stock available. Employment opportunities remain severely limited outside summer months. Transport links to larger Welsh cities aren't particularly convenient, and the town struggles with the same demographic imbalance affecting similar coastal locations, with an aging population and departing youth creating a community that feels increasingly stuck in time rather than moving forward with contemporary Britain's economic realities. Number 3. Barrow-in-Furness. Barrow occupies one of England's most geographically isolated positions, stuck out on the Furness Peninsula with limited road connections that make reaching anywhere else feel like a significant expedition requiring genuine commitment. The town's economy relies almost entirely on BAE Systems' submarine construction facility, which, whilst providing some well-paid skilled employment, creates dangerous economic monoculture where the town's entire fortunes rise and fall based on government defence contracts and military spending priorities that local residents have absolutely no control over whatsoever. When submarine orders are flowing and construction schedules are full, Barrow experiences relative prosperity with skilled workers, earning decent wages that support local businesses and maintain community facilities, but any hint of contract delays or government spending reviews sends immediate shockwaves of anxiety through a community that knows it has virtually no economic alternatives or backup industries to fall back upon. This precarious situation makes the town deeply unattractive to young families or professionals seeking stable long-term prospects rather than boom and bust cycles tied to Defence Ministry decisions made in distant Whitehall offices. The town centre has suffered significant retail decline, with major chains departing, leaving behind the familiar pattern of charity shops, bookmakers, and discount stores that signal economic distress rather than vitality. Whilst the surrounding Lake District scenery is genuinely spectacular, this proximity hasn't translated into tourism income or encouraged the kind of creative economy that might diversify employment beyond the shipyard gates. Number 2. Great Yarmouth. Great Yarmouth faces the classic British coastal town dilemma of economic over-reliance on seasonal tourism that provides 3 months of frantic low-wage employment followed by 9 months of sparse opportunities, creating impossible financial instability for working-age residents trying to maintain families, pay mortgages, and plan futures with any degree of certainty or security. The town's geographical position at the eastern extremity of Norfolk leaves it isolated from major economic centres, with Norwich, the nearest substantial city, requiring a journey that makes daily commuting impractical for most residents seeking employment beyond the immediate area. Whilst the offshore energy sector has brought some economic diversification, with wind farm servicing and gas platform supply work providing relatively well-paid technical positions, these opportunities haven't filtered through to transform the wider local economy or reverse the long-term population decline that sees more people leaving than arriving each year. The town centre suffers from high vacancy rates, with historic buildings increasingly derelict, while some residential areas battle significant deprivation and antisocial behaviour that compounds the negative perception, preventing new residents from considering relocation regardless of affordable housing availability. Educational outcomes lag behind national averages, health inequalities persist stubbornly despite intervention attempts, and the overwhelming sense remains of a town that peaked decades ago and hasn't successfully reinvented itself for modern economic realities, leaving current residents increasingly frustrated whilst potential newcomers look elsewhere for opportunities that feel more promising and sustainable. Number 1. Boston, Lincolnshire. Boston's population decline, tells a complex story of rapid demographic change that created significant community tensions, particularly following the 2004 European Union expansion, when large numbers of Eastern European workers arrived to fill agricultural and food processing jobs that local residents increasingly refused to accept due to the harsh conditions and low wages offered. This sudden demographic shift overwhelmed local services that weren't prepared or funded to cope with the rapid influx, creating genuine strain on schools, healthcare, and housing that fueled resentment amongst established residents who felt their town had fundamentally changed without their consent or consultation from authorities. The 2016 Brexit referendum saw Boston record the highest Leave vote percentage in the entire country at 75.6%, reflecting deep frustrations about immigration, economic opportunities, and the sense that London-based politicians had completely lost touch with concerns of working-class communities in places like Lincolnshire market towns. Whilst the agricultural sector continues providing employment, much of it remains seasonal, low-paid, and increasingly mechanized, offering limited career progression or the kind of stable, well-paid work that might convince young families to settle permanently rather than viewing Boston as a temporary stopping point. The town struggles with a negative national reputation following extensive media coverage of its demographic tensions and Brexit vote, making it difficult to attract the professionals, investment, and fresh thinking that might help regenerate the economy and community cohesion that's been significantly damaged over the past 2 decades. These 8 towns reveal uncomfortable truths about modern England's deep geographical inequalities that persist despite decades of regional development funding and optimistic regeneration announcements from successive governments of all political colours. The common threads connecting these declining communities are brutally clear. The long devastating shadow of deindustrialization that ripped out economic foundations without providing adequate alternatives. The harsh realities of seasonal coastal economies that can't provide year-round stable employment, geographical isolation that makes commuting to opportunity centers practically impossible, and the vicious cycle where lack of investment drives population decline, which further discourages the investment that might reverse the trend. Whilst property in these areas often appears temptingly cheap to outsiders, the low prices accurately reflect limited employment prospects, struggling services, and communities that feel increasingly abandoned by national economic success stories concentrated in London, Manchester, and other booming metropolitan areas that capture investment, talent, and political attention. Breaking these cycles requires sustained commitment, genuine investment beyond token gestures, and creative thinking about economic development that goes far beyond standard regeneration playbook recommendations. What solutions would you propose for these struggling towns? Have you experienced life in any of these communities, or perhaps made the difficult decision to leave one behind for better opportunities elsewhere? Share your perspective in the comments below. And if this analysis resonated, please like and subscribe for more honest examinations of Britain's complex regional inequalities. Until the next video,